Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another moment of madness with Listen with Vobes. Hello there. Of course, I did my natural thing of talking to the audience for 5 minutes and then forgetting to press the go live button. Did it again. But don't worry, it's a new book. Welcome along. We are doing The Thames to the Solent. So that's an interesting book by J.B. Dashwood, who wrote this in the Victorian period. So I'm not going to be doing any emotional crying in this episode. I'm going to try and make sure that I don't. Also, we have had an upgrade, and we have that new thing where you can pin a chat message on the chat board, which is rather interesting. Now, I don't know if Julia, as a moderator, is able to also pin a chat, but that would be quite useful. Do let me know, Julia, if you can do that, because there may be comments that you think I need to see. You could pin them to the top, and then I will be able to go, yeah, interesting. So there you go. Yes, you all knew it. I was chatting to you for 5 minutes. I hadn't realised I thought I'd pressed the go live button, but clearly I hadn't. What a fool. Anyway, I'm not going to dwell on that. So it's a new book, which is all very exciting. As ever, I've got my drink of stuff, which is delicious. The ginger and what's the name? And I did already say hello to everybody, but I'll just quickly go through. Hello to the lovely Julia, to Turbo Stream, to Holly & Co, to Justine Jones, to Billabong O'Neill, to Audrey Forbes, to Cooper, 68, The Green Man, Lee Lawson, Dave Over Yonder, Philip Hammond and Mary, Ben Reeve, who says, Jarrett Bacon Dashwood, I think it says that he was descended from Lord Bacon. Shame Lord Bacon did not marry a lady cheeseburger. I did laugh at that when I first read it, but of course it's not the same doing it a second time. Dave Under Yonder and Dudley Sawyer, who's made some soup out of his socks. Sensible Paul, Justine Jones, I think I said, Lee Lawson, Steve G, and Lee Lawson as the second time, and there we go. Testing, blah, blah, blah. Nope, I cannot pin comments. Oh, what a shame. I noticed that I can replace the pinned comments, and I can remove a moderator, but I don't want to do that. But, oh, what a shame. That would have been good. Oh, well. Because you could have alerted me, but hey-ho. Anyway, that is it. So let's start the new book, The Thames to the Solent, by J.B. Dashwood, by Canal and by Sea, which took place in the middle of the Victorian period. So, and it's a brand new book. This book was published in 1868, this edition in 2004. And we have a picture of the sailing vessel here. Let me just put on the sailing vessel cam picture so you can see what it looks like. There it is. So that is the craft that goes on the Thames to the Solent. Right, let's get past all these forwards. Preface. It's worth just reading the preface, I think, because it might set us... Is it worth reading it? Well, let's read it. Let's read it. Okay, here we go. And it says, the Archbishop Bodkin Hospital was a marvellous institution, and one of the boys who'd been at the Bodkin Hospital in the long-distant past decided that he would take a trip from the Thames to the Solent by canal. This is the subject of this book. Well, that's extraordinary. There is more. Amongst the many works written on sailing, rowing, shooting and fishing upon the Thames, the author has not yet met with an account of a trip from thence to the Solent by canal, which forms the subject of this little book. This voyage was accomplished in a small, una-rigged boat, which gives the writer the opportunity of offering the results of his experience with regard to the capabilities of these little vessels for river and sea sailing, as well as for fishing and shooting. As the reader will perceive, the expedition from Weybridge to Portsmouth can be made, wind and weather permitting, in 4 or 5 days, so that a fortnight's holiday may, in this way, be agreeably spent. The following incidents were originally put upon paper merely as a memorandum of this pleasant journey, but the writer, having received so many assurances from his friends that the subject would be of interest to the general public, he has ventured to publish them, hoping that they may prove entertaining and useful. The descriptions, historical and topographical, of the various places of interest on the route have been in a great measure taken from Murray's Handbooks of Surrey and Sussex, as well as the Beauties of England and Wales. The last chapter is essentially a nautical one and has nothing to do with the expedition. It has been written with the sole purpose of giving the writer's experience with regard to the Una rigged boats, and contains several suggestions which he trusts may prove useful. As this chapter is written solely for nautical readers, it is hoped the unsophisticated will not find fault with the nautical terms. Dr. Trump from the Archbishop Bodkin Hospital has advised me on various things in this book, but unfortunately we have omitted all of them. Canon Mallow, on the other hand, very much assisted with teas and coffees as I was scribbling at my workbook. Well, that's nice to know. There we go. Right. And there's some maps here, but they're so small and so insignificant that we needn't worry about those. Of course, one of the things that we can do is that we can have small diversions like we used to and see if we can work out the route as is today, because the canal, a lot of it is no longer there and some of it is still has been restored. So I think that's quite interesting. We can go and work out where it is. I don't know if Nigel Sadler's out there because he loves that sort of thing. Right. Chapter 1. At 12 o'clock on the morning of the 8th, 1867, the little Una boat Caprice weighed anchor on her voyage from Weybridge to the Solent. The day was lovely, and all seemed to smile success on this adventurous expedition. Her crew consisted of your humble servant and his better half, attended by the faithful and devoted dog Buzz, of the true Pomeranian breed. Does anyone know what a Pomeranian breed is? We had placed all we required for our toilet in a small portmanteau, and in addition had provided ourselves with a portable India rubber bath, a small ship's compass, a basket jar of 4 gallons of water, a small keg to contain a gallon of beer, a luncheon basket fitted with plates, knives, forks, cups, etc., and cooking apparatus, and last, though not least, a complete foul-weather rig of overalls, rugs, umbrellas, etc. Yes. Oh, yes. Love map diversion, says Turbo. That's great. Don't worry. We'll do a bit of that. Subs on this channel are too low anyway. The BE channel is now big enough, I think. This book covers parts of the canal that you visited in your videos. That's why I thought it would work as a reading. Absolutely. And what's not to say? Who, apart from the government, who's not to say that I might go back and visit some of them, which would be great. And Edward Moulding says, a change of tact. I think that's a change of tack, isn't it? Seeing as the boat has a sail. Just a little moment there. Anyway, and here's a picture of, we might need this if there's pictures in here. Here is a picture of, let's get that straight, hang on. There we go, that way, down, straighten it up. Of, I think, the interior. Buzz in the locker. Couldn't see much about Buzz, but there we are. Anyway, it was necessary, therefore, it was necessary before starting by canal to unship the mast, which is 20 feet long, and to substitute a short towing mast 7 feet in length in its place. The sailing mast we lashed to the boom, and stowed all away in such a manner as not to interfere with our comfort, nor with the proper working of the helm. It may perhaps be as well to mention that we attached a small block to the head of the towing mast, through which we passed the towing line, 30 yards long, and made it fast to the cleat inside the boat. This we found the best plan, for on starting we could at all times ease it off and prevent a sudden strain, which would have been injurious to the boat. Several of our friends, in the kindness of their hearts, came down to the river's bank to see us off, and having supplied us with cake and fruit, wished us good speed. The oars were out, and we paddled her up to the first lock on the way being the river way. Here we were called to pay a toll of 5 shillings, which freed us as far as Guildford. Our next care was to provide ourselves with a crowbar 3 feet long for opening the locks, 10 in number, between Weybridge and Guildford. A crowbar? Is that what they needed to? It's odd, isn't it? They have, what do you call those things? We had them on the boat. Julia, remember? Those spanners. They're not called spanners. Lock. They've got a name. The lock-keeper at Weybridge we found most civil and obliging, and he readily lent us the magic wand which passed us from one end of this part of the canal to the other. Although possessed of this formidable weapon, let me counsel those who are not adepts to its use to beware how they trifle with it, lest perchance they either inflict woeful wounds on their hands, or worse than that, fall headlong into the lock. The hatches of many of these locks are placed, goodness knows why, in the very centre of the gates, and in order to open and shut them it is necessary to sit astride the gates, place the point of the crowbar in the niches of the hatch, and, by violent jerks, raise it inch by inch until the floodgates are opened. Windlass, that was the word, yes, the windlass. Thank you. That's what they call it. But he's calling it a crowbar by the sounds of how he's done. These hatches are always stiff and very difficult to raise and lower, and it is necessary to get a good leverage. The crowbar must be worked from the extreme end of the handle, and if, whilst the wrench is made, the point should slip out of the niche into which it is placed, away goes the unfortunate being into the water. See illustration, page 16. Let's have a look. Page 16. Oh, here we go. What page am I on? Page 2. Here's page 16 with the illustration. So there he is. That's how they had to do it. So there's been some modification to opening the sluices or the hatches or whatever you want to call them in the working of a thing. Is that like a windlass? It must be. It must be what they're calling it, I'm guessing. But fascinating. We fortunately received a lesson in the art of lock opening from a Cambridge friend who kindly volunteered to show us the knack and thereby put us au fait of opening these annoying, though useful, obstacles to our journey. He accompanied us through the second lock, and having imparted a warning to me to be careful how I dealt with these infernal machines, I'm happy to say that I got through our journey without a ducking, though not without some reminiscences of my labour in the shape of cuts and bruises. After passing through the first lock, we were met by our groom, George Keane, leading a favourite dark chestnut pony, 14 hands high, whose duty it was to tow the boat until we reached the sea. This little mare, had been our companion and constant helper on many a former trip through North Wales and various parts of England. A better bred little animal could not well be found. Our only doubt was whether she would be quiet enough for the quiet enough for the purpose for which she was now intended. But why did we have a moment of doubt? Nothing could have exceeded the patience and endurance with which she performed her part of the task. A word or two on the subject of towing gear may not be out of place here. There are 2 or more ways of harnessing a horse for towing. The plan adopted by most of the bargees on the Thames is to have the traces long enough to extend 2 or more feet behind the horse, so that when the beast is suddenly halted, the splinter bar to which the traces are and tow ropes are attached falls to the ground and in no way interferes with the animal's hocks. My objection, however, to this plan is that the horse is liable to get his legs over the traces while they lie on the ground, which in 9 cases out of 10 with a spirited animal occasion an accident. The plan we adopted was to have the traces just so long as to allow the splinter bar to rest a little above the hocks, but not short enough to impede the free action of the pony. The traces were kept up by means of a kicking strap passed through the crupper attached to the saddle. At first the pony did not much approve of this new style of harness, but in a very short time became quite accustomed to it, and during our journey we found no difficulty whatever on this score. The collar should be well padded and fit the horse perfectly, and the trace furthest away from the boat whilst towing should be let out 1 hole longer than the near one, if possible, but in cases where the towing path is frequently shifted from one side of the river to the other, the time taken up in shortening one trace and letting out the other would occasion perhaps too much delay, but if it can be done, say with the locks being open or during any stoppage, it will be found to give a more even strain on the shoulders of the horse and greater steadiness to the motion of the boat. The towing line should be made fast to the splinter bar in 3 places, namely from the centre and 2 ends. If this is not attended to, a jerking motion, most disagreeable, will take place. The bar will in all probability be snapped in half, and in any case it will be perpetually swinging in all directions. I trust that my readers, who are already thoroughly acquainted with the knack of towing, will pardon these remarks, which I have thought might be of some practical use to the uninitiated. Was it of any practical use to us, the uninitiated, on how to tow with a horse, with hocks and splinter bars and traces? I have absolutely no idea what he was talking about. But it's interesting. That is a language, I suppose, that people would have been very familiar with, traces and hocks and all those things that connect a horse to something. Whether that be a dog cart or a plough, or indeed in this case a boat, and we don't talk about that. We talk about clutches and steering wheels and trims and electric ignitions and things. Julia, however, says I can picture exactly what is being described. Blimey, that's good. Hocks are the horse's heels, the backward-looking knees on the rear legs. Ah, is that what they are? There was me thinking that was something that was attached to. That's a hock. Hocky docky. Very interesting. Chapter 2. Avenue of Alders. Weybridge to Guildford. Being now fairly under way, we soon left Weybridge astern, and to our joy found ourselves entering a long and beautiful avenue of high alders. The canal at this point was very lovely, about 15 feet wide, the trees growing in the water on either side. The avenue was about 3 miles long, and there and here and there pretty rustic bridges spanning the stream. The day was hot, and the cool shade most refreshing. The banks were covered with luxuriant ferns and wild flowers, and the white and the yellow water lilies floating on the smooth surface of the water lent enchantment to the view. A fly rod, skilfully worked, might, at this time, have had some fine sport, for the fish were rising in all directions most greedily. Our object, however, was to get on, and to introduce our little craft to the saline waters of the deep. At the end of this pretty bit of scenery, we emerged upon New Haw Lock, a very large, deep lock requiring considerable force to work. We happily at this point came up with a barge like ourselves ascending the canal. They offered us service, which we readily accepted, and in 10 minutes we had mounted about 10 feet higher and found ourselves in a more open country of meadow and cornfields. So they've left Weybridge, have they? Weybridge astern, and they've gone through an avenue. Shall we see if we can find it? Shall we see if we can find it? Weybridge. Weybridge, is that on the River Wey? The splinter bar we call a whiffletree, says Cooper. Oh, right. Right, okay, hang on. I've got to find a what's the name? So, where should we look first? I'm going to go to Google Maps first of all and get to Weybridge and see if we can... Now, you may have to help me with this because you know how rubbish I am. Weybridge, here we go. Let me share the... Sorry about that, didn't mean to press that button. So we don't need that for the minute. There's Weybridge. Let me just get my bearings because there's Woking. Wait a minute, Guildford. Oh, right, okay. So where's the Thames? Here's the Thames. Oh, right, okay. So here we go. The River Wey and Godalming out. Yes. So there it is. There's Weybridge. So I wonder if he's talking about this stretch here. He says it's straight and 3 miles long. Look at that. So we can, of course, take our little... Well, we can put a satellite on would be better, wouldn't it? Oh, yes, look. Look at that. So there's the... This is where he's come from, then. This must be... Is this the Thames? Town Lock. Presumably that's the Thames, is it? River... Oh, no, that's the River Wey. Where's the Thames, then? Here's the Thames. Is that the Thames? Yes. So we've got the River Thames coming up over here. And presumably he's come in here, down here a bit, past the Town Lock. And then this must be the stretch. I still think that this... 3 miles? Well... Let's see if we can put our little man down here somewhere just to get an idea. Oh, we can't. Why can't we? We can put him down there, but that's no good. Are there no beauty spots? What about this? That must be a... Nope. Nope. He's dangling here. I don't know where he goes. Where does he go? I've lost where he goes. Oh, well, we can't even stand on that bridge because that's a... Is that a bridge we can stand on? No, no. Golly, it's not very good, is it? Bloody Google Earth. Well, anyway, that's where he is. So far, we can follow. He's on the River Wey. Marvellous. And he said he's coming down towards Guildford, presumably. Where's Guildford? Is this Guildford? Brooklands? Oh, yeah, Brooklands. Is this... That's the old race course there, isn't it? Where the cars go running round. I performed there. Well, I say performed. I was in a Poirot episode at Brooklands. So where did the river... I lost the River Wey now. So you can see how built up it is. Oh, there we are. Way navigation. You can see how built up it is. Down here. Oh, New Hall Lock. I think that's where he just said he's come to. Marvellous. Here we go. New Hall Lock. Excellent. Sorry about this. I've just taken a bit of time. We can stand there. Finally. And have a look over the bridge. Can we look over the... There it is. There it is. Whoop. There it is. Not much to see that side. And there's the lock. Here we go. Phew, sometimes takes a bit of an effort, doesn't it? It's like a detective story, this. Excellent. There's a nice picture of lock on Google Images. Oh, thank you. Let's have a look. Yeah, sorry, I took a while to get to it. What's it called? New Hall Lock Images. That's a nice one. That gives us a vague idea, doesn't it? Gives us a vague idea of what it was like. I'm sure there are more. Anyway, we got there just by Brooklyn Circuit, the old Vickers aircraft factory. So, at the end of this pretty bit of scenery, we emerge upon New Hall Lock, a very large, deep lock requiring considerable force to work. We happily at this point came up with a barge. Like ourselves, ascending the canal. They offered us their service, which we readily accepted, and in 10 minutes we had mounted about 10 feet higher and found ourselves in a more open country and cornfields. On our left, the scenery was shut in by the pretty woodlands of St. George's Hill. Okay, I think this might be the measure of how we do this. Let me get back to this so we can follow him and compare and contrast, as they say. So lovely cornfields. Look how much building has gone on since. Actually, I think I can do this in 3D if I've got this right. We can see all of this. What are we talking about? 110, 160 years ago? Something like that? All that clearly was cornfields. On our left seam, we're shut out by pretty woodlands of St. George's Hill and the line of the Surrey Hills in every form of undulation wrapped in a lovely purple haze, which indicated a long continuance of fine weather. The foreground was alive with haymakers, and the whole would have formed a charming subject for the brush of a Linnell or a Copley Fielding, which presumably is a painter's, artist's. On our right, we soon came to a pretty place called West Hall Lodge, standing in the midst of its farm. West Hall Lodge. You've got to go under the London Orbital Motorway first, mate. But you didn't know that. The M25, as it's called. Which way am I going? I think I may be going the wrong way. No, wait a minute. Is it going towards Wisley? No, wait, hang on. Let's get my... Right, there we go. Where are you? You've gone under the... Yes, you come down here. Byfleet, West Byfleet. Where is this? West Hall Lodge. West Hall Care Home. Well, I'm blowed. Look at that. It's now... There it is. It's now a care home. On our right, we soon came to a pretty place called West Hall Lodge, standing in the midst of its farm. At the time we passed, the inmates were busily enjoying themselves in the all-enthralling game of croquet. So we travelled on slowly and surely at a pace of about 4 miles an hour, including the locks, which took us on average, single-handed, about 15 minutes to open each, though a stiff one would take as long as 20 minutes. I'm not so... Oh, so we travelled on slowly and surely at a pace of about 4 miles an hour, including the locks, which took us on average, single-handed, 15 minutes to open, though a stiff one would take 20 minutes. So there we go. That is the... Look at what's all this in the midst of its farm. What's all this hideous stuff? Gosh, what a lovely looking place. Ruined by these hideous buildings. What are we doing to this fine country of ours? I find it so soul destroying. I would like to be alive with the technology and the advances that we have today, but I'd like to be alive 160 years ago, before we ruined everything. Oh. Anyway, one of the greatest hindrances to our rapid progress was the endless number of gates across the towing path, all of which were swinging 5-bar gates. Oh, that's interesting. With a steady-going nag, the best and the quickest way of getting through them is to have a hunting crop in hand with which to swing them open and to go through at a brisk trot, the man on board the boat being always ready to haul the rope taut and with a jerk to clear it of the gate before it shuts to again. The country beyond this is not particularly striking. The canal passes by Wisley Common and on until we reach Newark Lock. Right, hang on. Do let me know if this is dull, continually looking back at the maps and stuff. So he's passed on, presumably down here. Down here. This does still look quite nice, doesn't it? Down the river way. Let's just come out a bit. Down here. There is a canal basin there now, look. That obviously wasn't there. Past a golf course, which presumably wasn't there. John Donne's Somerset House. He doesn't mention that, does he? John Donne, Elizabethan Somerset House. John Donne, of course, was, what was he, an advisor to Queen Elizabeth I. Can we see that? Sorry, just on a slight whim here. Can't get any closer, unfortunately. Oh, there it is. If I click that, we get a picture. That's his... Nice. Surprised he didn't mention that. Maybe he didn't know what it was. Oh, I've lost... Right, it comes down here. Ripley Weir. What did he say? Where have we come to? I've forgotten now. That is the trouble with this. Wisley Common. Wisley Common. And then we come to Newark Lock. Here we go, Newark Lock. And we can stand... So Wisley Common must be somewhere around here. Newark Priory. The remains of... Gosh, didn't know there was a priory there. Look at that. He doesn't mention that. Swine. Mill Trail. So there's a mill somewhere here. National Trust Newark Lock. Oh, right. Let's just take our man down and have a quick look. Very nice. Okay, we get a vague idea of that. We love a bit of map action, says Turbo Stream. I know you do, Turbo. Just want to make sure everybody else is happy. Anyway, so there we are, Newark Lock. I won't do it to everything, otherwise we'll never get through this, will we? The country beyond this is not particularly striking. I read that. We reach Newark Lock. Here on the right lie the interesting here we go. The interesting ruins of Newark Priory. Let's get a better view of the interesting ruins. of Newark Priory. Newark Priory ruins. Trying to keep my mouse under control is look at that. That's nice. I wonder if that's publicly accessible. On a site originally named Aldbury, and also Newstead and De Novo Loco in the early charters. It was formerly occupied by the Augustan canons and was founded by Raoul de Calva in the days of Richard Coeur de Lion, Richard the Lionheart, presumably. The priory was dedicated to the Virgin and St. Thomas of Canterbury and received at different times extensive grants of land. Well, it's very nice, I have to say. I'm enjoying looking at it. Where's the cursor? Its annual revenue at the dissolution was 26 Henry VIII, don't know what that means, was £258, 11 shillings and 11 pence. The last prior was Richard Lippiscombe, who enjoyed a pension of £40 per annum. In 1556, the monastery and its possessions were granted to Sir A. Brown and descended to Lord Montacute, subsequently to Earl Onslow, and are now part of the property of Lord Lovelace. What a name, Lord Lovelace. Who doesn't like a name like that? A footpath leads from the river to the ruins, whose grey walls rise in sharp contrast with the deep, bright green of the adjoining meadows. They are of early English character. The walls are very thick and composed of flint and hard mortar. The portion which stands is most probably part of the priory church, and it is said that a subterranean passage led under the river to a nunnery in the parish of Ockham. The surrounding scenery is composed of rivers and rivulets. 7 streams run by the priory, according to Aubrey, footbridges and fords, plashy pools and fringed tangled hollows, trees in groups or alone, and cattle dotted over the pastures. Well, it's very nice. It's very nice. Adjoining Newark Lock, on the left, is Newark Mill, and a stone mill bridge here crosses the river. Whilst the lock was filling, I took the opportunity of running across the fields a distance of about 100 yards to inspect the ruins. The same open scenery, flat pastures, distant woods, with the Surrey hills beyond, continued until we reached Purford Lock, about 2 miles from Newark. Here we bought up for a rest and procured some bread and cheese from a little inn adjoining the rock. The inn was full of weary haymakers, who asked me in a plaintive voice if it was not very hot. I suggested in reply that some beer might be refreshing, and ordered it for them. Their joy may be imagined, as I was amply repaid, for they rushed out, insisting on filling the lock themselves. After passing, so that was nice. Where was that? That was at Purford Lock. Purford. Perfect. See if we can find Purford Lock then. So there we are at the whatever that one was. 2 miles, he said. So we've got to go south. Make sure we're going south around here. Down here somewhere. Wiggly Wiggly, Mary, Saint whatever it was. Where has it gone? There it is. Down here somewhere. Bowers Lock. He didn't mention Bowers Lock. Did he mention Bowers Lock? I don't think he mentioned Bowers Lock, did he? The same atmosphere continued until we reached Purford Lock, about 2 miles. Yes. I can't see Bowers Lock mentioned, so maybe that's a different one. Down here, maybe. Stoke. Oh, we maybe have gone too far now. Here's another one. Stoke Lock. and we're coming into Woodbridge. So I think we're a bit too far, really. But anyway, we'll read on and see what happens. After passing through Walsham and Peppercourt locks, we arrived at the village of Send. Oh, we should be able to see Send, shouldn't we? We should be able to see that. Guildford. The village of Send. Did you see Send? Send me to Send. Burpham. Losing the river here. It's got to be before Guildford. Sutton Green. Oh, there's Purford, presumably. But then that's... Hang on. With the ruins are somewhere here. Is that Purford Lock? But we've gone that way. I don't understand. There's Wisley. There's the golf course. I get in lot. Where's Send? We've gone past all of this. Send. Here we go. Look, Send. Send Marsh. River Way. It must be here somewhere. Is that a lock? The New Inn. Sorry, this is taking. This is probably taking. I'm just a bit slow at this. The Riverway navigation. Church Send. Here we go. There's Send. So presumably, is this the village Send cemetery? Well, I found the cemetery. The pub at Purford Lock is the anchor. He hasn't got that far. He hasn't got as far as you think, says Nigel Sattler. Well, I'm at Send now. Sutton Green. So anyway, there we are. Here we baited the pony and we baited the pony and ate our luncheon under the shade of some fine alders growing on the water's edge, after which we strolled about to see the place. The village is small, with a nice inn, where refreshments, simple and clean, can be obtained. The church is a large perpendicular building covered with ivy, but containing nothing of any note. In the churchyard are some fine elms, where we did see the church. I saw the blooming church. Where are you, church? Bloody thing. Top Cat balloons. That's not what I want. The Seeing Dogs Alliance. No, that's also not what I want. Why do I keep losing it? So trying to read and do this at the same time. No, this is... Where's the flipping heck? Is that Send? Barnfields. Send is at the top of the map, in the elbow bend of the canal. Oh, here. The New Inn. Is it? This is Send, is it? I can't remember now what I was looking for. Oh, the church. Where's the sodding church? Oh, this is driving me potty. I mean, I want to look at what it looks like today, because that shows you how much has changed. It'd be so much easier to look on an old map, of course. But that sort of is not the point. There's Triggs Lock. Okay. Where is the sodding church? Come on, you swine. Oh, I give up. It was wasting time. Anyway, so there we go. There's the perpendicular church. He wasn't over impressed, was he? On the opposite side of the river, about a mile off, is situated the town of Woking, where the traveller may find good quarters at the White Hart. And should he be fond of architecture, the picturesque, let him walk down to the old church outside the town. It's interesting he should mention Woking, actually, because in 1868... there was a lot of building work going on in Woking. I did a thing in Woking about the War of the Worlds, a video, years and years ago. The premise was, what if the book, The War of the Worlds, was true? It had happened that in the Victorian period, because later than 1868, 1890, 1889 or something, 1880 or something like that, it took place that H.G. Wells wrote the book. But my premise of my pseudo-documentary that I did, which if you're interested in looking up sometime, is called... it'll come to me. I should know the name of my own fact from fiction, but it was called Fantastic Stories. Put Vobes Fantastic Stories into YouTube, and up will come a pilot episode for a series that was said that the classic pre-1960s sci-fi books were actually real accounts. And so the idea was that in the War of the Worlds had happened, and actually if you go into certain places you would see the relics of these things. Well, we made the beginning of an episode, and I teamed up with a local historian to Woking, and he took me round because he used to do walks based on the War of the Worlds, where the events actually happened at Horsell Common. And I went into Woking to do some filming there, and they've got a model of an interpretation of one of the fighting machines, one of the tripods. Sorry about this little diversion, but it's quite interesting. And in the War of the Worlds, they're described as tripods, and that they walk with this strange gait that H.G. Wells describes. Well, and he lived in Woking himself, but he positioned the narrator a bit further down the road from where he lived, in a slightly bigger house that overlooked Horsell Common. And so we walked all around this, and this chap was giving me, the landscape of the book, but I was doing it from the point of view that this was a real thing that people had forgotten. That was the premise of the TV series that I was pitching. And so we went round there, and of course, doing the research back in that period from 1840s, at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, not the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, but in the middle of the Industrial, or towards the end of the Industrial Revolution, when trains came in and steam came in and railroads came in and brick, that was the point I'm trying to get to, that once you had trains, you could transport, as the Victorians did, bricks, because they could be made in one place, loaded onto trains, and easily transported. And they were, and of course, during that whole period, like everywhere, the Victorians were building, there was a huge building frenzy. Well, my point about this was that H.G. Wells, it's alleged, was inspired by the Thelodamites, or Thelodolites, however you pronounce it, that the surveyors were using to build the houses, because at that point there were hundreds of new builds going up. The whole place was being developed over a sort of 30, 40-year period. And the Thelodolites, these tripods, was what Wells had then imagined. What if these Martian invaders came with the on basically 3 legs, but were 100 feet tall, and instead of being 5 foot or whatever they are, they towered over houses. So anyway, that was interesting. So what I find interesting here, to bring it back to this, is that his comment was, whatever the bloody comment was, if you're fond of architecture and the picturesque, let him walk down to the old church just outside the town in 1868, which I imagine is just at the beginning of all the construction that was just about to happen, or was happening. That so it's interesting. I just find that fascinating. If you were walking when he was walking, those buildings, a lot of those buildings were yet to come. Found it on Vimeo. Oh, is it on? It might be on Vimeo. I can't remember. Yeah. Well done. We've all gone sci-fi, says Dudley Sawyer. No one would have believed. Exactly. Anyway. that was a long thing, but yes, we did a whole thing with, and it was a very nice Ian somebody or other. I can't remember his name now. Ian, and he took me around, and he had studied the book, and we had long conversations about it. It was a lovely chap, lovely chap, local historian, so he knew all about that, and he was telling me all about it. On the opposite side, so if you like that, you can go down. The tower is old and covered with moss. The chancel is early English, and the rest of the church is more modern date. Aubrey, on the information of the sexton, relates that as long as there are any remains of a corpse besides bones in the churchyard of Woking, a kind of plant about the thickness of a bulrush, with a top like the head of asparagus, grows from it and shoots up nearly to the surface of the earth, above which it never appears, and that when the corpse is quite consumed, the plant dies away. What a most peculiar thought. He adds that the same observation has been made at Send and in other churchyards where the soil is light red sand, as at Woking. A short distance below Woking are still to be seen the foundations of a palace, chiefly of very fine brick, which was the occasional residence of Edward IV, Henry VII, and Henry VIII. At length, James I, by letters patent, granted the manor to Sir Edward Zeus, or Zeus. Is it Zeus as in what's the name? De Zeus? Where's that place called? Delaware de Zeus or something? Della Zeus. Is it called Della? What is that name? I've driven past it a few times in the Midlands. Something Zeus. Delaware de Zeus? Or, I can't remember. I'm talking such rot. Anyway, granted a manor to Edward Zeus, from whom it descended to Lord Onslow. The walls of one of the rooms are still existing, which is said to have been the guard room during the residence in the palace of the sovereign. It was here that Wolsey, when Archbishop of York, received the intimation that he had been elected as cardinal. On the hilltop, the remains of a tower capped with a kind of lantern still exist, which is said to have been used for the king's guidance when he came to visit Sir Edward Zeus, or Zouch. Is it Zouch? I'm thinking of two different places at night. Sir Edward Zouch. I'm thinking of de la Zeus, supposed to be the centre of England. Oh, yeah, Ashby de la Zeus. Ashby, yes, there we go. Oh, yes, Zeus, that's it. I don't know why you guys tune into me, because I'm clearly as thick as something comes out of a dog's doodah. Anyway, Sir Edward Zeus, according to Sir Anthony Wilden, was one of the chief and master fools who assisted in the king's pastimes. I've no idea, really. That's a bit of a strange old diversion there, isn't it? How are we doing on the time? Oh, it's nearly 5 o'clock. Thank Christ for that. I think we'll leave it there. Because it's now time for us to get underway. We'll get underway on the Riverway in tomorrow's episode. Hopefully we'll find this interesting. I know we're still suffering from Archbishop Bodkin Hospital and all the lovely characters from there, but it is what it is. The Beaufort family owned Working Manor, says Michael White, whoever the Beaufort family were. Della Zeus, supposed to be the centre. Yes, I read that. Ashby Della Zeus. Such a lovely name, isn't it? Ashley Della Zeus. St. Mary the Virgin, near Triggs Lock. Ah, picturesque. Ding. Did we get picturesque in there? Anyway. Lee Lawson, Zeus. Yes, I've got Zeus. Thanks, Richard, as ever. Very kind. Thank you very much for joining me on today. We will do our best to straddle another one of these tomorrow. Yes. It's different from the Archbishop, but they're all different, aren't they? Anyway, thank you for joining me. There's a Vogue show tonight where I can concentrate less and let my brain relax. Anyway, good beginning, says Dudley Sawyer. Thank you very much. No tears in this one. So that's something, isn't it? That's something to hold on to. No tears, no hankies coming out, no having to break away and sobbing. Oh, the brooch. It was the brooch that did it. bloody Sweetie coming out with the brooch. There, do you remember that? And Ginger going, no. Anyway, take care. Have a good afternoon, and I'll catch up with you later. Bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.